All right. Boy, episode 20? I think, yeah, we're rolling. So, welcome back to Before the Blow Up. We got Oliver Zwar. Do you prefer to be called Oliver or Ollie? You don't really care.
Don't really care, but it's usually Ollie.
Ollie sounds
Ollie
good.
Zwar,
Yeah.
baby.
Mate, we're in the land of nicknames, so
Yes,
just
we
the
are.
shortest name possible.
Thanks for coming on too, bro.
Thank you, yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Bro,
Um,
anytime.
Before we get started, I have a little surprise. Josh doesn't know about this, but I've kept it a secret. I've got some frother socks.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
What the frick?
Oh, I just thought I had to pull them out at some point. But
Did you wear two double socks all the way here?
no, well, that was the thing. That's why I was so awkward about taking off my shoes, because I'm like, they were straight underneath. I'm like, oh, man, I need to go. You didn't notice it, but so I was like, I went back in my car, changed, put an extra layer of socks on. Anyway,
Sick.
yeah, I just wanted to whip them out. I think they're...
Oh, right.
sick.
Let's talk about Ollie now.
Sorry. Oh, that's funny.
Bro, we'll get straight into it. Sort of. Well, the podcast is called Before the Blow Up, right? So we usually talk about what it was before you blew up a lot of the time. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What was it like growing up? Sort of.
Yeah, I guess for me, I grew up in South Beaches of Sydney, down in Maroubra. And that's back in the heyday when the Bra Boys were kind of scary and
Yeah.
different to what it is now. So like living in the southeast suburbs, like wasn't that good of a young kid, like place for a young kid to grow up. And mum and dad, no, dad was out from this way, and then mum was from Sweden. So then having two young kids living in southeast suburbs of Sydney just was not like the one.
Yeah. Not a good path to go down.
No, like
Yeah.
they could see like some of the other paths that people were taking and friends and whatever, and yeah, moved us out here pretty early on when I was like 8.
Oh yeah.
So I was racing motocross from a young age, and that's all I did in Sydney, and then moved out here, and I wanted to try everything possible. So I played like every sport I could, tried everything, and then was still racing moto, but it was like pretty full on with dad. Like
What do you mean?
dad's very competitive.
Right.
Yeah.
And-
Pushing you a lot.
Yeah, pushing me, but it was never in like a bad way.
Yeah.
It was more he could just see my potential, but I just had so many other things I wanted to try and do, and like just never really like kept at it. And dad just pissed dad off so much because like he could see how good I could be, but I just wanted to go play with my bike in the sand or like just do little kid shit.
Fair enough. Did that cause a lot of fights?
Oh, we butted heads, especially when I was a teenager. Like
Yeah.
all like, and now that I'm older, I can just see like shit. Like if I just listened or like if I just took some of his advice at a young age, like it would have been so much better. But everything he said, I was just like, nah, not true. Like not happening. I want to do it my own way.
I feel like that's most teenagers.
I think it's
but-
most teenagers, but then there's some kids that just figure it out, like at a young age. But then I don't know. It's always looks easier than it is, or I don't know. So
So when did you actually start racing mountain bike when you came here?
it wasn't until I was under 15s. It was quite late. But then back then, like that was the young category. So I remember like I stopped racing motocross, and all I was doing was riding BMX at the skate park.
Yeah.
And then for dad, like he just couldn't understand that because it was like not really like a competition sport. And he's like, all right, you have to do something like, you have to do a sport, a proper sport.
Yeah.
And we're at our mate's place in Newcastle, and then he had a Clay Porter film on,
Yeah.
and it was like 3-minute gaps or hypnosis or something.
Oh, 3-minute gaps is OG,
Yeah.
dude.
So then that was on, and I'm like, wow, I want to do that. So then like a couple of weeks later, we got a big hit, specialized big hit from the local store, and then did a race, and then was hooked.
And that was the first race?
Yeah.
Straight into downhill?
Straight into downhill.
Did you rope Benny into it that way as well?
Benny being my younger brother, he just followed everything I did.
Yeah.
But he was at his age, he hadn't grown enough, so he was quite small and short and
How much younger is he than you?
4 years.
Oh, so there's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, so yeah, he was just like short, wide. He had like just everything on him was short, like no neck. So, and back then, like everyone was using neck braces too. So like you're riding down these steep hills, he's just tiny. He had like a neck brace on, he couldn't see up. So like there's all these videos and he's just like looking at the top of his goggle. It's quite funny. So he didn't like racing at the start, but it was just a super slow like. Yeah, I wasn't anything crazy good or anything. Just like did all the local Vic stuff and enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
it was just all for fun, which is sick. And then coming from moto, downhill is just so chill. Like some of the kids that I used to race with in motocross, like I used to see their parents like pretty much physically abusing him, but definitely mentally
Really?
abusing him like every day.
Like just yelling at them?
Just
sort of
yelling
thing?
and just like you're on the start gate like at a Vic race or whatever, and there's 40 kids, all aged between 7 and 8 or 9, and it's like C grade or B grade, and the dad's just going off like, if you don't do this, we're walking home, we're selling everything. Like it's just so serious. You get to a Vic race, downhill, and everyone's like, oh, if you need a hand, come over here. Like everyone's like, other
Super
kids are
helpful.
helping on the side of the track, or like other parents are helping other parents. Like
The
just-
culture's heaps better.
it's just so chill.
Yeah.
So that was one of the coolest things. Like we turned up and my dad just couldn't believe it, and mum thought it was sick because there was no noise and
Yeah, no butting heads, no one yelling at each other.
yeah, it's just healthy sport. So yeah, we were pretty hooked pretty quick.
Yeah. And your dad sort of come along with it too, come around from being a moto dad?
Yeah, he loved it. He wasn't moto. He just wanted us to get the most out of ourselves.
For sure.
So and like fair enough. Like
As any good parent.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like he definitely pushed us, but it was always like with really good intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hated training at a young age, so it just used to really annoy him. So
When did it click in that you started actually, okay, now I've got to actually put my foot down, pull my finger out and start training?
probably only like 6 years ago,
Damn.
because I was quite like the story goes, I did all 15s, under 17s, went into juniors, wasn't fast, never made junior worlds team, which is kind of like
Really?
Like
you weren't quick as a junior?
not really, because like our junior category was ridiculous.
Was that the...
We
what
had-
era was that?
So we had like Andrew Crimmins,
Oh.
Dino, Dave McMillan, Luke Ellison, like Booger. Brent Smith was insanely fast back then. I don't even know him.
Yeah. No, I know
Um,
Brent Smith. I see him on Strava around the gong every now and again.
Yeah, he's from that way.
Yeah.
And then you had Ben Hill, Jackson Davis, like there was Joel Willis. Around that age, like there was so many
age
people. So like I was just never quick.
Never there.
And like I was doing an apprenticeship for dad. I was just back racing moto. I was just hanging out being a normal 16, 17, 18-year-old.
Mm.
And then it wasn't until 2016. So up until then, like the first few years of elite, like I'd go to a national and get 20th. Like I was just cruising
Yeah.
for fun with my mates. And then something clicked like when I was like 20 or 21. I think I started racing moto again, and I think that made me train a lot. I was just racing local stuff.
Yeah.
And then something clicked, and like moto translates so well to downhill.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started winning all the Vic series in downhill, and then I was like, I'll go to a national. And then I think I got like 5th at nationals that year in Brighton. I was like, oh wow. And then when I did a World Cup that year, just went like for fun, wild card, and then got 29th, and I was like, holy crap, like what just happened?
Yeah.
Crazy. Was it, as a junior though, was it a bit like demoralizing just getting smoked? Or you're just having fun, like you didn't care?
Well, see, me and Dad always talk about this because he always just says like, oh, you've always had this ability. You just didn't believe in yourself.
Mm.
But then back then, like, yeah, I might have had skill, but I'd never had the want to be the best because I didn't believe I could be.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been chatting about this heaps, and I see like young kids now. I'm just like, how are you so determined at such a young age? And I guess it's because they believe they can win.
Mm.
But back then I was like, cool, like I'm struggling to even get a top 15. So how do I have the belief
To win.
to win? So how do I want to be the best and go out there and go train before work when I don't think that dream's even a reality.
Mm.
So it's definitely demoralizing because me and Dino, like he's from 10 minutes down the road here. So we were best mates and we hung out every single day. Caught the same school bus. So I was seeing what he was doing.
Yeah.
And
That's
then,
the thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh crap, like that'd be so cool to be able to do that. But then it's like, okay, that's not my reality at the moment.
Right.
What sort of things different was he doing compared to you at that time?
Don't know. That age is weird though. Like sometimes like kids are just quick. And like, I don't know if it's a maturity thing or whatever, or like he's just at that age, it doesn't matter so much about training and stuff. It's just some kids just unlock that speed early.
Just start hooking.
Hook. And he was so fast then.
Real.
He was racing up in age, winning like elite in under 17s. Like he was so fast.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it was quite late that I sort of figured it all out, or still feel like I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
But
When did you start feeling like you actually got the belief and had that confidence? Like, how'd you actually overcome that sort of didn't know if it was going to happen mindset?
I think it happens in different stages, like different stages of belief.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's like that success builds confidence and confidence breeds success, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
It's like when you had small wins, would you...
Yeah.
Right.
But then it's like every time so like if I go back to that 2016 year or whatever it was, and I was like, okay, I was racing my motorbikes, doing all that, and I started doing well at the Vic series. I'm like, oh wow, like this is the next step.
Right.
I believe that I can do nationals.
Mm.
And then it's just like you just keep building that, like you're almost raising the roof, or like your level of belief every time you achieve that goal. Because like what I want to achieve next year, if I had said that to myself in 2016, I'd tell you to piss off.
Yeah.
Like that's not even possible.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a slow build of like continuously, I guess, building yourself up
Yeah.
and believing in yourself, and
Gaining that confidence.
yeah, it's
So
just
you'd say
gaining confidence.
So you'd say the key to confidence is like micro steps towards the big
like,
goal.
yeah. And like if you talk to anyone, like I don't know, it's hard because if you had to go like, okay, what's the one thing you need to get better at? It's like, oh, I need to get faster. To get faster, you've got to break down getting faster in 100 different steps
Yeah.
to actually achieve it. Because you can't just like, oh, frother, get faster, ride faster next week.
I'm trying, bro.
Yeah, but you can't just do that. You got to go, okay, well, if I actually dissect everything, it's like, okay, if I can be 1% better with bike setup, 1% better with diet, sleep, all these things, it's going to help in the long run. So I think you just really have to like, yeah.
How did you do that?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, practically, how do you dissect things?
It's definitely about this is another thing that Dad and I talk about a lot lately. So me and Dad have our own podcast, but no one records it.
Yeah.
It's like just when we go road riding.
Yeah, that's what we used to do. Before
Yeah.
we actually started a podcast, we'd just sit down. Well, we recorded like it on a voice note sometimes,
Yeah.
but we'd sit down and just talk about these things for ages.
Yeah. That's what Dad, because Dad's, the thing with Dad as well, he's an absolute animal. Like, he used to do marathons and he was like an AFL hard nut. Like, then he raced motocross and then, ultra marathons. And now he comes road riding with me all the time. But it's his podcast, so he'll just lay it all out. We'll just talk and like, it's pretty sick. But we've been talking about like, how do you find that? And it's pretty nuts. Like, what was the question?
How do you dissect getting faster?
Yeah,
How do you break it down?
yeah, fuck.
Where did you start to get faster?
But it's always like with our journey, it's been like I was sort of saying before, different steps. So then in 2019, when me and Benny went over and did a whole year as a privateer, kind of like what you just did, our steps of getting faster then is so much different to our steps now. Because when you go like, picture yourself now, you trying to get faster at a privateer level, but then picture yourself in 4 or 5 years time on a factory team.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, how do you get faster then? So it's now like me being on a factory team, I have more time to work on that speed. I have people around me that can, like, I can dedicate my whole week to getting faster.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a privateer, you spent the whole preseason training, but also saving up
Working.
and working. Oh, and that's what I was going to say before, when Dad's podcast, like, we didn't have people really like helping us and giving us advice, because we were like the first Aussies in like a decade that had properly gone over and had a crack. Because like everyone else my age would go, if they went over to Europe, it was on the junior worlds team.
Yeah.
And if they went as an elite rider, they were on a factory team or on a team.
Right.
So there was no path for
So you were
privateers.
like the first privateer.
Before that though, like probably 10 years before that, you had like Josh Button. Like there were people doing it. So, but it was very like, there wasn't many
far
people.
between.
Yeah, exactly. So like, we had no idea what we're doing
Yeah.
going over there.
Yeah.
So like, we always said like, what would it look like if you had people that could help you, or just some of the most simple shit, like whether it's like, hey, fly into here instead of here,
Yeah.
or like just that sort of stuff. So like, as a privateer, like, you're worrying about that stuff, or like oversized baggage, or if you
It's the worst, dude.
yeah, or like,
Being overweight.
And on a team, you're not worrying about that stuff.
No,
You've got
like-
people to take care of it.
and we can talk about like the contrast of being a privateer on a big team later, but like when you're doing that year like you've done, or like I did in 2019, like you're not even worried about going fast. You're trying to just get to the World Cup, or you're trying to get to quali run because you've got one set of wheels for the whole season. Just stuff like that. Like, so I don't think there is I think it just depends on what like level you're at in your career.
So with me, right, so I'm not a bike rider at all. I'm a musician. But I often talk to my mum about all these small steps in between. So it sounds similar
Yeah.
to you and your dad. Is I like to talk about things and analyze it with someone and talk about it and go through it. And I think that maybe that's similar to your journey.
Yeah, definitely. Like and like it's all about just having a go, and like the amount of mistakes we've made, like the amount of wrong turns I've made. I lay in bed now and go, oh, if I did this, it'd be that. But it's all lessons, and like we're in this place now where it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all these mistakes, or like yeah, going back to everyone in my junior year, I'm the only one that still races from that the junior team.
Really?
Dean's the only one.
Yeah. Dean's
Connor's not really racing.
Yeah, he's retiring too.
And then the next youngest behind me, I think must be Kai,
Ahern.
and he's like 6 years younger than me.
Yeah, wow. So you're actually kind of old.
I'm 30 next year.
Yeah.
So I started late.
Yeah.
We were just saying to Siri then, like, I just signed my contract for next year this morning, and this will be my 4th year getting paid.
Yeah.
Or next year, sorry. So it's a late start, but
Do you ever wish you started younger? You ever have that thought?
this comes up on mine and Dad's podcast a bit.
I feel like you can always wish and what ifs. It's like
You've romanticized so much, but then it's like when I look back at being 16, 17, 18, like it was sick.
Yeah, you
like,
wouldn't change it.
I had my New South Wales red peas in Victoria because we live on the border.
Yeah.
So I was the man because everyone, like I had my license before everyone else.
Yeah.
I had a Commodore Ute and I had a 250F and a 110. And I just hung out with all my mates that race motorbikes. It was sick.
Yeah, good time.
Knock off work, go ride one of their tracks. We'd go down to Melbourne, ride like Park 4 or like just have fun, and then go race Vic Series and camp, and like it was sick.
Have heaps of fun.
And then before I went like into this sort of like, I don't know, chapter of my life, like being professional, like a couple of years before that, like I was just going hard with my mates, like partying, festivals, like just not doing the typical downhill thing because I wasn't racing downhill.
Yeah, just having fun.
So then now I'm sitting here nearly 30 and like I'm not wishing, oh, I missed, because I'm sure there's some of the younger dudes like, oh, I wish I did this or went to a festival. Or
That was
I don't have that itch.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions because Josh and I never Like, we're not big partiers at all.
Yeah.
What's something that you learned from that scene going into this scene and going into a grind season?
Like, it's kind of catch-22 because, like, one of the funnest times I've ever had in my whole life was, like, a falls festival down in Lawn.
Really?
Like, unreal. It was, like, my first festival, and, like, I was with some mates, and, like, I'd been through a bad breakup, and, like, I met so many insane people, and it was just the funnest 4 days of my life.
Is that just good music,
Just
ton of
good
drugs?
music, like, yeah, like everything under the sun. Like, it was so much fun. Like, no phone service. It was just cool, and like, but then like the other shit, like, for me now, like me and little old, because we got the same trainer now, Ollie Davis,
Is that, what's his name?
Chris Kilmurray.
Yeah.
Yeah,
0.1 athletic dude. Yeah.
Shout out Chris. He little Irish French hybrid he is. So like, we just went riding the other day, and there's an insane track here. It's about 30 kilometers long.
We'll have to do it.
A lot of pedaling.
Bro, look at these things. They're made for
Got an
pedaling.
e-bike. You ride series e-bike.
I'll put it on Tradie.
And we're just giggling the whole way down.
Mm.
So it's like being 30, riding a bike, giggling, with under the influence of nothing other than
Giggling,
what's
riding a
in
bike.
front of you.
Yeah.
It's
Mate.
like that beats anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was like when we saw you at Threadway the other day as well. Like, me and Ol were just giggling
Yeah.
the whole way down. We're just having the most fun ever.
It was good fun that day.
So I don't think you're missing out on anything in that scene,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to get stuck and trapped in it.
Mm.
And then
Do you feel like you were getting trapped in it?
a little bit, but I think it was more because I was going through a tough period in my time,
Right.
breakup, whatever. I stopped racing downhill. So I had this little crack, like I said before, in my first World Cup. I was like, wow, I got 30th.
Were you doing like your first World Cups and all this season, all while also doing an apprenticeship?
Yeah. So I did my first apprenticeship with Dad, and then most of his work ended up being down in Melbourne, and I just hated being down there.
Yeah.
So I started doing a carpentry apprenticeship. And I remember the first World Cup I did was in Cairns.
Okay.
So it was kind of like
here,
home ground,
home
but still
race, but
freaking 5 hours away by
flight.
plane.
Yeah.
So then I went over to Europe, and then I had a crack at them, and I got a huge crash at Fort William, and it's kind of finishing around that 60th place, but I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I went over there, it was raining at Leogang, and you've ridden Leogang. You know how hard pack it gets?
Mm.
I had full spikes. Like, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's that thing of like, what would have you done if you had the help at a young age or whatever?
Mm.
Anyway, I had a crack for that year. Didn't do so good.
Was it the whole season?
I only did 3 races in Europe.
Yeah.
I had some alright. I was like a couple of top 40s. And then I remember
That's heaps good though.
but I remember flying to Mont-Saint-Anne. I was away for 7 days. I remember landing at Melbourne at like 7 a.m. or whatever, driving home, and then having to get up for work the next day.
Oh.
I remember driving into work thinking like, what am I doing? Like, there's so much more to life than this.
That's a huge. So you flew from Melbourne to Mont-Saint-Anne, raced Mont-Saint-Anne,
Yeah.
flew back, went straight to work.
Yeah.
So what? It's like
That's-
7 days,
Yeah.
a week.
It was horrible, man.
Holy.
It's one way to get over jet lag.
Yeah, I bet. Factory refault.
And then I had a crack at a couple World Cups the next year and just did shit. Like, I had a bad relationship, messing with my head, and I was young. I didn't know whether, like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, I've got a dream over here, but then on the other hand, I've got like
Another life.
a life that would be like becoming.
Yeah.
And then that all just fell apart. Racing went to shit. Relationship went to shit.
Why
Everything
did it all
went shit.
fall apart?
Don't know. Just
Just
was that
did.
point in life, and then I went into a bit of a dark stage. Not dark, like it wasn't even bad, but like I just stopped racing downhill. Wasn't enjoying any of that, and I was just partying, and that was my way of dealing with it.
That was coping for you.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
for like probably a good 8 months, I was just hanging out with my mates. Like, I started playing footy like up in like Corryong, like the Upper Murray Football League,
Yeah.
which is like rough.
Yeah.
So I started playing footy there with my mates, and we were just like drinking every weekend. And then It wasn't, and Benny was flying at the moment, my younger brother. Like he was racing. He got picked up on a team and all that.
Because he's Paddy Butler, Harry
Yeah.
Parson era.
Yep.
Yep.
Joshy, Clark,
Yeah.
Remdog, like Remy Morton. And then, so Benny was meant to be doing a full World Cup season, but then he like had the world's biggest hugie and like broke his shoulder blade. He done everything.
Oh.
So then if it wasn't for that, there was a wild card. The last round of the year, there was a wild card race in the Bress, which was 2018. So I hadn't ridden a downhill bike for about 10 months.
Far out.
And I was like, okay, I'll have a crack because we're going to go to Sweden for Mum's birthday, see her family and stuff.
Yeah.
So I trained pretty hard, like, and then went there. And this was the first year they cut it from top 80 qualify to top 60. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to qualify. Like, I haven't ridden for so long. And I qualified 58th.
Oh.
And then I was like, holy crap. And it was just me and Dad. And it was like 5 degrees, pissing down rain. And I remember crossing the line and I had to wait for Dad because Dad came to the top with me with an umbrella and that. And I remember, like, I'll never forget this. And there was like a kind of turning point in my brain because he came down off the chairlift and then he looked at me, I looked at him. And then I gave him the nod. Like, it almost makes me emotional now because there's just this moment where we're like, holy shit, we did it. And for me, it made me believe that I can do it.
Yeah.
And from then on, that was the end of 2018. And from then on, I've just been on like a mission or whatever you want to call it. Like that completely changed my path in life.
That one qualifier.
That one qualifying, or like Benny injuring himself for me to fill in this wild card just as like something to do, completely changed my life.
Wow.
And like I dropped in last. Like I had no points, nothing. I dropped in last and then qualified 58th. Last race of the year. And then I was like, holy shit, like I need to really change what I'm doing. And I remember like got back from our Swedish trip, from Europe trip, went back home and like, I'm not working. I stopped doing my apprenticeship. I was like, I'm going all in. And kind of the rest is snowballed into where we are now.
Snowball. So when you quit, how did that happen? How did that...
Downhill.
No, quit your job.
Oh, this is a bit of a...
Because I did a similar thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Kind of funny though, like so there's a local builder around here and he was struggling for work. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or anything, but like he's not going to listen, but he was struggling for work at the time. So then I was like, I'm going to go to Europe for a bit. Is that all right? And he's like, yeah, take as much time as you want. I was like, it's going to be about 8 weeks. And he's like, yeah, no worries. All sounds good. And then I got back and he'd fired me for taking too much time off.
Oh, what?
But it kind of worked out good because I was gonna leave anyway. And yeah, so that happened. So I was just I'd helped Dad a bit here and there and saved up a bit of money and but even then, like I still wasn't like fully. I don't know. There was always just something where I just wouldn't like.
Bit of doubt?
Yeah, I don't know if it was doubt or like with my training and stuff, I'd always just like, I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it later. I always found it hard to like...
Discipline yourself.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Did you ever find that you clicked into that?
Yeah, eventually, like now for sure. Like now I'm pretty...
Locked in.
Yeah, like I don't... Unless I'm sick or something, like I don't
miss a session.
Or like take any shortcuts or...
When did that discipline lock in?
Probably like it's like addictive. Like when you see progress, like in anything though, like if you see progress that you just want to do better or do more or, so it's probably like around, it wasn't long after that, like after I got fired.
That's kind of sick, dude.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's so funny. I remember ringing him and I was like, hey, I'm back. He's like, my house at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So then I was full tradie. Like I had a ute, had my tool trailer, everything. Yeah. Rocked up to his joint and he's like, you're fired. I was like, oh. What?
Made you come in early.
Yeah. I was like, oh, what? it was kind of funny, but I kept a few batteries, so I got a few extra Makita batteries, which was cool,
Come on.
Yeah.
and a box of nails.
Those and a box of nails.
Pretty funny. But it's funny how, like, me and my partner always talk about it. It's like the person she knows now compared to the person I used to be. I used to be just like a tradie that would go party and ride motorbikes.
Mm.
Now it's like professional athlete.
Yeah.
It's like jump the timeline almost.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you
Pretty
feel like
funny.
that's affected your relationship in any way, good or bad?
Nah, because I met her after all that,
Right.
so she's only ever known professional Ollie.
Right.
Fair
Okay.
play.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and then, like she'll be, but even now I'm like, I can't see myself just writing myself off or like,
Yeah.
Mm.
You just got that confidence.
yeah, and like I don't need it.
Yeah.
I feel better having a big sleep than
Then a little sleep.
yeah.
Fair play.
Well, hangovers like just hurt,
Yeah.
and drinking's expensive too.
Yeah, man.
Mm. Yeah.
I was here at the pub last night and it was like $8
Holy.
more probably. So
Yeah.
How did you and your brother like push each other?
I think. Well, there's a funny like within the World Cup scene, there was always this sort of running joke that me and Benny would always be on the same time.
Mm.
So it was before you were there.
Yeah.
But like we'd come down in time training and would be half a second between each other all the time. Like it was insane.
Really?
Yeah,
That's like.
it was really
That's
cool.
cool, actually.
But like Benny is the competitive one, and he's the one that will like bury himself.
Mm.
Right.
So he's always just been the little brother catching up. And it wasn't until like he was so quick as a junior as well.
Mm.
So this time where I kind of like semi-retired or whatever it was, like quit. He was on Junior Worlds team. He was the only one in Europe from that Worlds team like doing well.
Mm.
Because like I think Remy and Baxter were meant to just kill it because they were killing everything here, but then Benny was the only one like
Doing it good overseas.
actually getting results. So he's always had insane talent, and I still believe today he's like the fastest. He's the faster rider. Like he hasn't reached his potential.
Poor Benny though, with his hand though.
Poor Benny. So yeah, it was always just like, even just anything like you're riding, he's just always behind me, pushing
Mm.
It's that
me to go
competitive
fast.
thing. Like it's a healthy
Yeah.
competitiveness. It's like we have it.
Mm.
We both like we're best mates, but we just both push each other just a little bit, and it just keeps going along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I see a lot of other brothers and like or other relationships, whatever, and it's almost like an unhealthy
Yeah.
Mm.
competition. But
I'm
me
better
and
than
Benny
you,
are never like. It's always been so healthy.
Yeah.
Like yeah, we have arguments and like we'll push to our limits during COVID and when we're running like union, the first years of union and stuff. But like
I do have a bunch of them questions in there
I've got some
ready
good
to
ones.
go.
Yeah. But it's always been super helpful and like especially when you're over there like racing like you did as a privateer.
Mm. How many years
Having-
did you actually privateer for?
Well, we did 16 and 17 was just full privateer, but I only did like maybe 8 races total in the 2 years.
Yeah.
But then 19, me and Benny like made the unofficials War Brothers Racing,
Yeah.
and we went over there and we were like full lussied out
Yeah.
on our new V10s and stuff. So that's 19.
Shout
and
out
then-
to Johnny.
Shout out to Johnny.
Oh, we had that's who sponsors me now.
Yeah, Johnny's like the maker of dreams.
Mm.
And that was cool how that happened. I was working at a bike shop in town and he came in and I introduced myself to him because Dad was always that old school big, like, introduce yourself, shake your hand, let him know who you are.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Johnny, I'm Ollie Zwar, making like a Zwar Brothers racing. We're going to go to Europe, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, love it. And then a couple of weeks later, like we were fully kitted out and it was sick.
Far out.
Wow.
So he helped us out big time. And then a lot of the sponsors that we met through him ended up becoming sponsors of Union.
Yeah.
through
So
that.
how did Union actually start? So War Brothers Racing was
Yep.
like you and Benny.
Which was 2019.
Yep.
Then we went into 2020 and
Which is COVID year, which is Ollie's
Yeah.
first junior year, right?
Ollie D's first year. So Cam Cole, who's
Yeah,
an ex-pro.
GT.
Yeah.
Used to manage GT.
Yeah. So he's an ex-pro. He had something to do with the Santa Cruz importer in New Zealand.
Right.
So he had Tehudo,
Mm.
brown sugar. Shout
Yeah.
out.
Brown sugar.
And then Finn HB.
Yeah.
And then we got chatting and we're like, okay, well, it all fell through, but it was going to be the sickest deal ever. Santa Cruz were going to throw us money and we were like kind of relying on it. And it was going to be me, Benny and Ol, and then it was going to be Finn and Tehudo, and they were called Hyper something importers for Santa Cruz.
Right.
So that year was called Lusty High Performance.
Yes. Okay.
And then nothing really happened. No, Ollie wasn't there that year.
Okay. Yeah. Because Ollie wasn't there till it was the union.
That was 2021. And so nothing really happened in 2020. Me and Benny, we went and raced. There was only 4 races because we could drive down from Sweden. But that was all a bit of a shit show, COVID year. But then 2021, I met Joe Bowman,
Yeah.
who is Steel City Media. And I met him because he's got a Swedish partner. And then we just got on like, a house on fire. Like we just clicked. And which was kind of weird because I've spent so many off seasons just binge watching his videos, like all the This Is PDs and stuff.
Yeah.
And then turns out he's actually the maddest dog ever. And then the connections he has. So he's like, cool, I want to help out a heap of privateers. I've always had these cool ideas. I'm like, cool. Well, I've got the van, I've got the pits, I'm good at doing the on-site managing. I just suck at writing emails. And he's like, cool, I'm good at that. And then I think that first year we had no budget, but then he paid for the accommodation.
Yeah.
And then me and Joe basically picked the riders. And it was Tehudo, Finn, me, Benny, and I was like, I want little Ol.
Yeah.
And because at the time in Australia, you weren't allowed to leave unless it was for work. So you had to have a written contract to leave Australia.
Right.
So luckily we did that. So then Ollie was allowed to come over to Europe. But then I was he was 16. He'd never, ever been on a plane before. So his first flight was to Geneva from Melbourne or Sydney or something.
Big flight.
Yeah. So then we picked him up in Geneva and we basically looked after him for 6 months, which is pretty sick. Like, it was cool, but like I look back now and I go, like, it was pretty full on. Like, and that goes back to what we were saying about like your different stages of like belief. Like, when I was there, I was like, my best ever result was like a 25th or something. But then I'm also like managing a team. I have full care of this 16-year-old on the other side of the world that's away from his parents for 6 months.
Yeah.
Managing like what he eats, managing like the food, where he goes, flights, everything. Like, so like my expectations then was like, okay, let's just qualify.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't about being the best athlete or stuff. Like, they just had so much other
things to think about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Was that a bit exhausting for you, like on your mental?
we were talking about it the other day, me and Ol, and like once the season was done, he came back to our place for a few weeks in Sweden, and I just left him. I was like, cool, you're good here. You hang out with Benny. I'm going to my girlfriend's place.
Yeah.
And I was so like, I was bonked out.
Mm.
I was empty. Like,
Yeah,
those
I can
seasons back
imagine.
then were like tough.
Yeah. What was COVID years even like? Like for
Well-
World Cup racing and the union and stuff.
Well, I probably should have said this before, but the whole, because we swapped federations.
Yeah. I actually would love to ask you that.
Yeah.
What even brought that on?
So this goes back to the privateer years, where 2019, me and Benny both get selected for Worlds as elite riders, full privateers. Not
Yep.
many people were doing that back then.
Mm.
And we're like,
Just fed jersey, full fed jersey privateers.
oh, we had enough points because we were doing well.
Yeah.
But we were like, yeah, we weren't making, like, we were, like, shout out Johnny, but we were still paying for everything.
Yeah, of course.
And like, I'd get tires from like Intense Factory Racing because Dino was on there, like just stuff like that.
Yeah, full privateer.
And we got selected for Worlds, and we're like, holy crap, this is unreal. And we're like talking to the federation, like, sick. Okay, what's the go with representing your country? They're like, oh, you got to get a jersey, but it's going to cost you $80.
Yes.
And then we're like,
yeah. Oh.
and then we're like, okay. I was like, what about accommodation? They're like, and we got selected late. It was like 2 or 3 weeks before the World. And then they're like, oh no, there's a house for the cross country riders, but downhill riders are on their own. And we're like, cool. And like, we couldn't really afford it. And then like the closest accommodation we found was an hour away. And then in Quebec City, which is like...
Oh, this was Montserrat.
It was Montserrat.
Yeah. It's like a 40-minute drive on a good day.
Yeah, and then like race day, there's traffic and stuff. It was horrible.
Oh, no.
And the whole time, like I've known the Swedish guys because my mum's Swedish.
Yeah.
So I'm dual citizen. I've spent a lot of time there growing up. Know the language, all that. And when I was there, the Swedish guy was like, hey, if you come race for us, we'll pay for you.
Oh,
And as a privateer, that was like,
so attractive.
yeah, and like,
Why would
we're
you
like,
not?
yeah, and we're like, well, like, if we were full factory riders, we probably wouldn't have because you don't need
Yeah.
your way paid for.
Yeah.
But then back then, it's like, holy crap, this is not actually going to come out of our own savings account. So we got chatting about it, and then we had a meeting with him, and over there, there's like it's called the Dollar Sports Academy. It's basically like the AIS.
Yeah, okay.
And
Sick.
like the main coach of that was the main guy at Swede Cycling, Adrian, his name is, and he had a huge part in us just moving over there. So we're like, and the whole time doing the privateer thing, I'm like, this is too hard living out of a bag for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like it's not fit. Like you can't become a World Cup rider and just be in hotel rooms or shitty vans or stuff. And I'm like, okay. I just started looking at other sports. I'm like, at the time I knew a fair few boys in the MXGP, and they're like, well, they all live in the Netherlands and they live here for the race season. I'm like, well, why don't we do that? Like it'd be so easy with our dual citizenship.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about a visa, dude.
No, exactly.
How
Sickest
good.
thing ever. And then everything fell into place, and start of 2020, we're like, cool, let's move to Sweden and become a part of the Swedish Federation, which doesn't mean anything. Like at the end of the day, it's just a little flag on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, some people get a bit all weird about it. Like,
Have you had backlash? Did you cop backlash from moving
Nah.
to Sweden?
no, because anyone that I talk to about, well, it's funny because the Swedes love having someone fast.
Yeah.
And then the Aussies hate the Cycling Federation in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not one person has come up to me and gone, oh, that was a bad idea. They've all gone, yeah, nah, like...
Yeah, everyone's like,
everyone's got a
smart
story.
move.
Everyone's got a story about MTBA or whatever it is.
Of cycling.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't they?
And also, like, going back to what I said about Ollie going over to Europe, if we were in Australia, I wouldn't have had a team registered or anything. So I wouldn't have been able to leave Australia to race. So if it wasn't for that I've thought about it so many times, but if it wasn't for changing federations, going to Europe, living in Sweden, doing all that, I wouldn't have been able to leave during COVID, and I wouldn't have been able to race. I probably would have stopped racing.
That would have been the end of Ollie's War if you didn't change federations.
Exactly. So there's the story on why we swapped. And all we had to do was miss world champs in 2020.
Which isn't
Which
crazy
was...
big deal.
No, that was that one that was snowy.
Yeah.
And that's all we had to do. And like ever since then, it's been
Yeah, that's good.
pretty good. So there's a story on that.
That's sick. How did you finish up at the union? When did you finish up at the union?
2020.
Yeah.
So after the 2021 season, I had some good results. I had my first ever top 20. Had 2 top 20s that year. But then I had crazy speed, and just like the usual privateer stuff happens. Like I snapped like 5 chains that year, just randomly.
Well,
Or
from
like-
pedaling.
I don't know. Like I remember at Lenzerheide qualifying, I came out of the gate, snapped a chain, and then got a front flat,
Oh.
but then still qualified. So I had like cool, like good ass speed, and then when it clicked, I'd get a top 20, and then after that year, because me and Tahudo were doing really well, and then Benny was doing pretty well. Little Ol had a couple top 5s. So then I remember sitting down with Joe in Morzine, and we'd written up this huge proposal and a lot of the sponsors we had were still from lusty. So we had ODI, SDG, Tradie were huge for so long. Maxis was still a sponsor. And then Santa Cruz. So everything that we had was almost direct now. So that was a pretty cool feeling because I'd built up relationships, met everyone, and a lot of them approached me because we were doing really well. So it was pretty cool to have that sort of relationship.
That's sick, man.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then a cool story about TRP is that Leger, because we bought TRP because Dino's mechanic is a good friend of mine, Darcy. And I was like, hey, if I'm a privateer, I'm going to want spares from a friend.
For sure.
So we bought TRP brakes. And then it turns out, like, I came through the finishing carousel and then there's a guy like, oh, are you sponsored by TRP? I'm like, no, I bought them. And then the guy hands him his card and it was the CEO for TRP.
Oh.
So then we ended up becoming like one of the first proper teams
With TRP.
with TRP on Union.
Oh,
It's cool.
I didn't know that.
Cool stuff
That's
like that
sick.
happens. So anyway, end of 2021, me and Joe write up this huge, in our eyes, huge proposal. And Santa Cruz came back with like a good chunk of money.
Yeah.
And then everyone else like came back and we had a good little budget for what we were. And then one of the deals was like, that was my first ever time getting paid for the next year, 2022.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, if I want to do it, I don't want to be the team manager anymore because I still have to do all the roadside managing and all like getting the race plates and sending in the queue for that and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So then for 2022, kind of everything sort of clicked in a way. We still had the little team stuff and then I started just out of nowhere like killing it. That was when I started getting like top 10s and still shit was happening. Like our bikes got stolen at Fort William.
I remember seeing that.
How did they get stolen?
So, it still haunts me now. Like that's why my bike's in the front room.
Yeah.
I'm so scared of like my shit getting
My bike's
stolen.
on the back right now. The
Yeah,
car.
Beechworth's so chill.
Yeah, it better be.
Um,
We won't be going for a pedal after.
but I remember like Fort William, I was like, and that bike we had then, so we had Santa Cruz, Olin's was a Swedish suspension company, and their stuff's so dialed, and they were sponsoring us, and like they weren't really sponsoring anyone other than Bruni's team,
Yeah.
and that was just because of the Swedish connection. And that bike that year, me and I were talking about the other day, like the best bike I've ever had. Like the way the thing worked,
Really?
unreal. And I remember Fort William, I was like, did my first day of practice, I'm like, we're on here. And I wasn't in time training, but I did my own time run. I was like, shit, that was like top 10 pace. I'm like, we're on here. And then I rocked up for quality day. I was so amped. And then I see the pits and everyone's scrambling. It's like, what's going on here? And then I walk in and I was like, what's going on? And then Jimbo, our mechanic, was like, everything got stolen.
He's a legend.
I thought it was just a sarcastic, like, oh, everything's gotten stolen. But everything got stolen. So they broke into the back of our truck, little box van, and took everyone's bike, everyone's trail bike. They left nothing. They took all Lockie's kit. Like, so then, luckily that year, Syndicate had spare bikes. So then, like, I think Frida rode lorries, and then we had enough spares that Lockie built up a bike, and then I rode Steve Pete's bike, display bike.
Yeah.
Benny rode Greg's bike. So I did quali like on different parts.
Oh,
It was just like,
Yeah.
like how could you even prepare for that or script that? Or
you can't.
so then that was the start of 2022, and then the rest of it was pretty dialed.
How did that? Did you just end up just hitting back everyone and be like, can we get more bikes, please?
Yeah, well, we were
What's what
struggling.
happened?
Nah, because luckily in Morzine, we Santa Cruz have like a little. That's where the Syndicate's based.
Yeah, where the warehouse
So-
is. Yeah.
We had a little corner where we had spares, and luckily we were meant to be getting like 2 frames a year, so we just had to use our second frame earlier.
Yeah.
But then definitely like we had to order a lot of stuff,
Jeez.
and it was a lot of stressful times for Walker and Joe.
So what did you do did you hand someone the manager role, or how did that go?
Yeah, kind of like so. Joe knows the Shaw brothers really well, Luca and Walker. And Walker was kind of like looking to do something in the industry, and
I've never met Walker.
he's a funny boy.
Is he?
He's a loose cannon, mad dog. So he got the role of doing that, and it worked for the year. There was obviously some ups and downs, and I think what I struggle with is because like that team basically started off as me and Benny, so I had so much pride in the team, and like if you look back at photos, like no one really knew like how privateer we were because I always made sure we looked dialed. Like me and Benny would always look so factory or like so presentable.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to represent the people that are even just helping us out with stuff to the maximum.
For sure.
So then when I had like when the other people come in and didn't really, not necessarily didn't care, maybe didn't have the same level of attention to detail I had.
Yeah.
It would almost like feel like an attack on
what you built.
On what I've built up.
Yeah, yeah.
But then like that's where Joe was so good. Joe would like I'd ring Joe, having a little tantrum, and he'd just be like, "It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just ride your bike." And I'd be like, "Huh, true."
Yeah, I'd be the same way. If something I built up and spent all this time, I'd be like, I'd hate watching.
Yeah.
I feel like tear down is the wrong word because it's not that, but it's just like someone else's ideas or what they think is right that I don't agree with.
Or like if you care, like I remember Joe spent his own money and bought us 2 easy ups, and like I took such good care of them because I knew that coming out of his own pocket, he got them all printed up. So like when I'd see boys like the boys packing up, like just shoving stuff in there, I'd be like, it's small stuff, but I'm like, I know how much effort Joe's put into this. He's spent his money, or like leaving the accommodation dirty. I'm like, it's in Joe's name, it's his money. Like a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is at the end of the day is small stuff, but like I just took pride in it.
For sure.
But that's fair though. Like
yeah. So yeah, it was definitely hard to kind of like, it was sort of catch-22 because I was like, I don't want to do this job anymore, but I was good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even, so it was hard to watch someone else, not necessarily do it wrong or anything, it was just do it different.
Yeah.
But then I tried to stop like worrying about it, and obviously it worked in the end. But
And so you went on to a factory team then, is that?
after that, yeah. So
Well, was it tough to leave the union?
yeah, for sure. Like, so I had some really good results that year. Like I had 3 top 10s, and then another top 15 and a few other things. So then, but like after all those insane results, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have so many offers. And at the time, I was like so keen on the Canyon Factory team.
Yeah.
And then back to Cam Cole, like we stayed really close through, well, not really close, but we stayed close through those years, and he helped me out with the Tony because Tony was looking from FMD, Big Tones, was looking for a new rider.
Tony Seagrave.
Yeah. He was looking for a rider, so Cam Cole set that up. And
What a legend. What a legend.
So I did my quali run at Valdesol, and I'd like got 10th or something, and I was like sick. And then I get a text message from Cam saying, "Can you come to FMD now?" And I was like, "Yep, no worries." So I pedaled over there after my spin down or cool down. First thing Tony said to me, he's like, "All right, so we're looking at adding an elite male rider to the roster, and I've got a list of riders, and then I've got a second list of riders, and then you're off that list," like in a joking way, saying like, doesn't want me at all.
Really?
He was just joking. It was pretty funny.
You'd be. I don't even know how I'd take that.
I was like, yeah, you guys aren't even on my radar either, or something like that.
Yeah.
He thought it was pretty funny.
Fair. So then what? You just sat down.
Then we had a meeting after the race, and that was the last race of the year that year.
Yeah.
And then lucky for me, I had a good result. So we sat down and kind of went through a bit of a plan, and sort of I said what I wanted, and they said what they wanted and what they could offer, and came to a happy medium, and shook hands on it. And yeah, I think he flew me out to his place like a couple of weeks later, and I had a bike already. And but yeah, I was like, those first few weeks and months or whatever was unreal. Like going from like, it's just unreal feeling, like something you've dreamed of your whole life, and then it's like even just wearing like the t-shirt that just said FMD Canyon Factory, or not even factory because it wasn't full factory team, but it was like everything I ever dreamed of was sick. Like,
Yeah.
Mm.
and then it was almost like, it was almost something I wasn't prepared for coming into the first few races. Like, almost a bit overwhelming. Like, it's something that I have never even really thought about. As like, when you're going from privateer, you know what you're going to expect, what you're going to get at a race. But when you turn up to round one and you've got this huge truck with your name on it, and you walk into this huge pits awning, you've got your mechanics bay with your name, a bloody photo of you on the wall, and then
mad.
You got this fully custom painted frame, and then you get this gear, and it's all custom gear, and it's like, it was honestly overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was
Yeah.
just
You
like,
have a bit of imposter syndrome?
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, definitely, and I still do to a degree, but like, I remember like thinking like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then you're like, shit, like actually focus on racing. And
Was that the biggest thing? Like, you didn't have to worry about anything else? Like, what was the
Yeah.
biggest shock being on a team?
but this is like one thing. So when you're a privateer, you don't get time to worry about racing.
Yeah.
So you're like I know for you, it's like track walk, but you guys track walk late.
Yeah.
So then you get down and you're like, okay, I got to do a tire change. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need to do dinner. And then all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock, you're in bed. And then you wake up and you're riding. And then in between the chill time, you're working on your bike, or you're getting dinner ready, or you're doing all that stuff. So all of a sudden you're like, well, it's quali run. You haven't even thought about anything.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's like, you almost get too much time to think about what can happen, what could happen.
You think that's like a good thing though? Like, if you could balance it, it's like a
If you
good
can
thing,
handle
not
it.
thinking about racing.
If you can handle it, I can definitely see people, and I see people sit there for 2 or 3 hours just thinking about
The race.
getting nervous or whatever. And I found this year, like with some of my results or injuries or whatever, like you can get in your head pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if you can control it, then yeah, it's all good. And it gives you more time. Like now I'm like, okay, cool. Practice is done. Review some GoPro. Have an insane meal from the chef. I'll go on the turbo for a bit, cool down, chill out. Like, yeah, like it's night and day. Like, it's not even fair. Like seeing, like, comparing what you had to like what Bruni gets, it's just not fair.
Really? Is it that big?
Well, like
big,
even well, like 5-star accommodation, like that team, or like Syndicate, like the places they stay. Like,
It's crazy. I know. I've snuck into a bunch of Syndicate hotels.
yeah. You just see how the other half live. So like it definitely is a huge, and there is a difference between like my team and the top teams, because like our team is a family run team. Like,
It's still a big team.
it's
though.
still huge, and like when you go see like how much Tony graphs, it's unreal for like the amount of effort he puts in. And it started off as kind of how the Zwar brothers did. It was just him, Chaos, and Tane. And now it's grown into this huge team of 5 riders, and next year is going to be even bigger. And like, it's pretty cool to see just a family team do that. And they just have so much passion. Tony has so much passion for us, and like giving the team is follow my dream. Like that's what it stands for.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
That's good.
He's just giving back for nothing.
Yeah. So it lines up with you pretty freaking good.
Yeah, like that's what it was just like. It was so cool. And the first half of my contract, or like the first year, like we came out flying, and everything was sick.
That's sick. What
Uh,
was it like when you got injured then? I'd love to talk about injuries because I had a big stint this year too.
Well, like that whole off season, I was just flying. Coming off like the sick year, I was just healthy, training, did some crank work stuff, nearly beat Bruni, and I was just flying. And then I went into round one and had a huge crash 2 weeks before, but I was all good, and I still finished like, I think I finished 16th at round one.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Yeah, then I had some other good results. Like I think Valdesol, I was like 21st, and I got rain affected, and then I dislocated my shoulder, and at Andorra.
I remember that.
Kev was there, Moi Moi.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he helped me get it back in. And then I was like, I remember sitting there when it was out, and I was like, all right, season done. Season done.
Really?
And then I popped it back in, and then I was like, all right, I'll take a few weeks off or whatever. And then I ended up trying to ride the next day, and I nearly qualified, which is cool.
You just strap it up?
Strapped it
Where
up.
did that drive come from, do you think? Just chill
don't
buff,
know.
just go for it.
It's just Aussie battler, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
Aussie battler.
I don't know, being a tradie and, I don't know, dad being a hard ass. Or,
Yeah.
And then Ludenville's the next week, and I missed out on finals by like 0.3 with a Cook shoulder. I was like, wow, this is sick.
Mm.
And then Leger's my favourite race, favourite
Yeah.
track.
It's a sick track.
And that's like where I've had my best ever results. I was like, I felt so confident even with a Cook shoulder. And then we were having troubles with our rims that year. I kept smoking them. And I was going around the like literally the last berm of the track, really. You know the one? You know,
The big left-hander
Yeah.
into the jump of
Yeah.
the creek
so that's pretty much the
where
bottom.
everyone was ripping tyres
Yeah,
off?
it's pretty much the bottom. There's
Yeah.
about, after that, it's just a long straight. And then you're pretty much at the finish line. Anyway, I knew I was losing air. So I went around it slower. And then halfway around, I just hear an explosion. And the tyre rolls off.
Oh,
And then I just get thrown.
that's
And
a
then I
bad
land,
spot.
obviously like that. And then my wrist just turned into like, it was
Have
horrible.
you got a photo?
Yeah.
You'll have to send it to me.
Yeah.
I'll cut a reel out of it.
And then I remember sitting there, but I was all pretty heavily medicated for my shoulder. I didn't really feel it. And I was just looking at them like, that ain't good. So I got up and walked off the track. And then I was like looking at like, how are they like, not even like, oh, what's the recovery? I'm like, how are they going to straighten that? That's going to be painful. Anyway, I got walked down to the medics and I had to sit there for like an hour. And the craziest part about this whole story is someone had come in and said, oh, Benny hasn't finished either.
Yeah, because that's when he did his hand and
His
wrist.
hand. So then I'm like, shit. So then I asked someone to go get my phone, and then I rang mum and dad because they're in Australia. I'm like, hey, I'm okay. My wrist is cooked. I don't know where Benny is. And then some random kid messaged me on Instagram saying, hey, I just watched Benny crash. He's okay. His wrist is sore. He's hit his head. But they heli lifted him down. And then I'm finally about to get my wrist straightened. So I'm laying on the bed, and then I hear Benny trying to spell his name out. And he's like, Z, W. And the French, she's like, what was that? And he's like, Z. And I get off the bed. I sprint in there. I'm like, Benny. And he's like, what? Because I knew he crashed, but he didn't know I crashed.
Yeah.
And then I hold up my wrist, and like he was in so much pain, and he's one of the toughest kids I know. And I'm like, oh no, but his looked fine. And oh, it was such a same. So the crazy part is, same quali run, technically in the same sector of track. So
He
split
did
3.
his at the bottom too.
He did his between split 2 and 3. No, 3 and 4, and I did mine
Yeah.
on split 4
Yeah.
over the
Over the thing, yeah.
same wrist, same section of track within 10 minutes of each other.
That's crazy.
But completely different injuries within the wrist. So it's kind of like, to go back to how what you like asked about the injury, like I went into that injury feeling good because my last split, whilst I was going over, I was in the air like this, but I was like 5th.
Yeah.
So I was like,
walking.
cool, like at least I'm going into an injury fast.
Yeah.
And I thought, everyone was telling me like, yep, it'll just be a plate and you'll be all good in 6 to 8 weeks. So I was like, cool, no worries, sweet. And then, yeah, it wasn't. It took, yeah,
Frick.
like,
What was the complications with it? What did you actually do?
so basically I shattered my radial head. So there was 10 screws just in the head, and I'll show you some photos.
Yeah.
And
holy.
So everything healed really well, but where the plate was super far forward. So there was just a massive lump here. Like there's still a bit of a lump, but the plate
Yeah.
was actually sitting there. So like I couldn't bend this way because
The plate
my
stopped it?
scaphoid would hit the plate.
And you don't want to break
This way was all right, but every time I did this, everything had to be stretched over the plate.
Oh.
So then every time I grip, so you got your main tendons that run across the top of it,
Yep.
and you've also got a nerve that runs over the top.
Mm.
And the more I used it, the more irritated I got. So at the start, I was like, it's not too bad, pretty painful, but it was affecting the tendons and nerves so bad that like I couldn't anything that was like trigger or like strength wise, that like if you do that on your hand, you'll see where it runs, and like it'd just be getting caught on the edge of the plate.
Oh yeah, you see it in there.
And it just get caught on the plate, and like nerves
hurt.
Nerves and tendons suck. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to wish that upon
That's what
anyone.
I went straight through that nerve. I cut straight through that.
Oh,
There was a scar there, but yeah, so it hurts a bunch.
and like I remember like after the surgery, I've had surgery before, and I was like, oh whatever, and then it was the weirdest pain because they obviously they have to pick up your nerve and stretch it over your plate, and then then your nerve's got to go, okay, cool, that's normal. But then for the first like 72 hours, it's just on fire.
Yeah, post-op pains are crazy.
Yeah. So then, yeah, it just kept getting worse, or it just didn't get any better. And I was like trying to train. It was like Cannonball here in Australia, Threadbow.
Mm.
What was that? That was like February, I think. I'd only been riding for a couple of weeks because I'd go out, I'd try ride, and I'm like, I can't ride. I had no grip. I couldn't use my front brake. I couldn't grip with my thumb.
That's super gnarly.
And I just kept trying to push through it. And then I'd go see doctors, and they're like, yeah, everything's healed fine. It's probably just your nerves. There's nothing we can really do about it.
It's sort of put up with it.
It is what it is. And the original surgeon said he doesn't want to take the plate out for a year because of how smashed up everything was. There's so many holes in the head.
Jeez.
So I just tried to ride, and I had really good speed all year. Like I know people always talk about splits and speed and stuff, but like on my results this year was an absolute flop. But like I had top 15 speed nearly every race, but something would either happen, I'd crash, or I'd get flat tire, or like something out of the ordinary would happen. And I think that just goes to like like piss poor preparation makes piss poor performance.
Yeah.
It's because like in between the World Cups, through the season, I wasn't riding downhill. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like I'd go home from a World Cup and I couldn't ride for 2 weeks
Because your hand.
because my hand. So I'd rock up. My first run would be, leger practice.
Yeah.
So like
Fair.
even in the gym, like I couldn't hold up a 10 kilo like kettlebell.
Oh.
I'd have to like hold it like that, or even like that, because like just the weight in this finger would just be fire.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So it was just
brutal.
it was horrible, and like, and obviously not having Benny there because he was out all this year with injury as well. Like it was kind of like
Just stuff out on your
it
mental.
was weird. Yeah, it was like I didn't really talk about it much with anyone because I just got on with it. But like, wasn't that fun to be there?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, because you don't have much. I mean, there's not much to do between like Monday and Thursday before track walk.
Yeah.
And usually it's just me and Benny. So like not having him there was like super weird. And then I couldn't really, like I wasn't looking forward to riding because I knew how much pain I was going to be in.
Mm.
So it was quite a tough year. And in the end, like the team saw how much I was struggling. So at Ludenville, he's like, because my contract runs out this year.
Yeah.
And that was always playing on my mind too. 'Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
Because you could be also out of a job.
I'm an adult. Like I have bills. Like I got shit I need to pay for. And then, so I was in my mind a little bit in the back. And then we had a meeting and he's like, look, like the team's going through, because we're not going to be on Canyon next year. So there's also that going on. Like
Big announcement. I feel proud to have that on.
FMD's not even,
Are you allowed to tell what you're riding?
nah,
No, okay.
I can tell you later.
Yeah.
You can figure it out. But like FMD might not even be going around next year because we might not like.
Yeah, how did FMD get affected with all the changes for World Cups?
Don't know. I'm kind of not really in it anymore, so I don't really know. Everything's like, I don't know. Everyone just talks shit.
All up in the air, eh?
But like, I don't know. But going back, so Tony said like, look, we want you next year. like go home, get surgery, get right for next year. It's not worth doing the rest of the races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And then I went out and qualified 14th.
Oh,
So I was like,
Wow.
sick.
I guess that really shows how much like your mindset plays into racing. Hey.
But also, like, in my mind, that speed was there all year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just got not
Something
lucky,
happened.
but it just worked.
yeah.
Mm.
Like, if there was 6 of those other races, something happened because the preparation
Yeah.
and if that one run it worked out.
How
Yeah.
do you get your mind ready for a race?
So many people are different. Do you take headphones at the top? It's because you're a privateer and that means you have to ride with them. So
Yeah.
I'm the same. I never had headphones because
I would like to, but I just have nowhere to put them. No one's gonna take
Exactly.
them down for me.
so like I never had a phone or I never had my AirPods or anything with me as a privateer. So now when I warm up, even with my mechanic and my trainer and stuff, I just still don't run music or anything. I just hang out.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of easy because like growing up racing motocross, like you got 40 kids on the gate. Whereas downhill is just like peaceful.
Yeah.
It's just you.
Just up there and like you just I don't know, like don't want to sound like these other dudes on podcasts. They talk about meditation and shit.
No,
but
go
like-
for it all.
No,
Go
but
for
it's like downhill is like almost a meditative state. When you're in that zone,
The flow state.
the zone
Mm.
is just an old term for in a meditative state.
Yeah.
That's like what your dad would say about like, or like if they did something, dad would always talk about the zone. That's just a meditative state.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that zone, when you're racing, you don't think,
Yeah.
which is wild to say that like the fastest form of racing is when you don't think
It's the slowest form of thinking.
because you're just doing.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I just kind of try to get in the zone and just do a warm up routine. And I think that kind of sets the mood and your body knows, okay, this is what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do some visualization.
What is your warm up routine?
It's pretty chill.
Is it?
Like it's changed over the years, but Chris has got me a pretty good one. It's just like warm up for 10 minutes on the spin bike, just do some mobility stuff, and then do like a threshold sort of sprint on the bike. Then get into it.
And then you're good
About
to go.
it. Bounce around on my downhill bike a bit, and then
Good to go.
out you go.
How do you go about visualizing? Because I've never been able to do it good.
It takes hard. It's hard.
How do you do it?
It's just practice.
How do you start practicing it? Like if you were going to tell someone, like teach someone how to visualize who's a beginner, how would you tell them to start visualizing?
Well, I tried to do it in a race week like a while ago, my first ever year privateer, and I struggled. I remember my coach at the time was like, hey, try visualization. Sam Hill used to do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He used to be able to get it, like time yourself. And I was like, okay, no worries. And I remember it was at Lenzerheide. So I did the Lenzerheide track in my head. I'm like, yep, left, down there, yep. And I pressed stop, and it like took me 30 seconds to get down. When the track usually takes you 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, like that's how much I'm rushing it in my head.
Right.
But it's honestly just practice. And if you haven't done it for a while, like it's like if you've ever tried meditation, like or meditating, like you don't realize you'll start off like doing the first part of the track, and then all of a sudden like you've caught yourself thinking about donuts or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something off.
So you gotta just bring yourself back and like really try. But it's the same when you're riding. Like it's easy to wander off and think about other shit.
Yeah.
So you just got to practice. Like that's the only thing you could really do is practice. And if you are going to practice it weeks before the race, not the weekend of the race.
Really? See, only time I've time to visualize or even warm up at a World Cup, first World Cup, I'm like, holy crap, these dudes warm up. And I was like,
pretty
what the heck
intimidating,
do
eh?
I do?
You just hear this, and then all these Frenchies are doing this. You're like,
And I'm like,
what? They're all sniffing stuff. You're like, what is going on?
yeah, I'm like, what the heck do I even do? I
And then you
felt like
see all the Aussies sitting down and throwing rocks at a bottle or something.
yeah, biggest fish out of water, hey. But I was like, I asked Dean about it too. He's like, yeah, just run through the track in your head. And I'm like, is that all it is? But
And like, I don't know if it's something that I've picked up, but when I'm visualizing, sometimes I'll get to like a technical section, and then naturally my brain will like take me on like, if I make a mistake and I go down off the line, like if it's a really technical section, it'll sometimes like I'll go through the different things that could happen or like variables. So like if you hit this route and get down here, like okay, you could still ride out low, just as like I don't know, a backup.
I never did that, and I'd find if I did make a small mistake, I would start to panic.
Yeah. So
Start
this is
to
kind of
panic.
like maybe just covering all bases in case something happened. 9 times out of 10 it didn't.
Yeah.
But it's a good little trick. But I think like if you go to any sport or anything, like they always say visualization kind of like creates the
Success.
future. Not the future, but like, yeah, if you're visualizing something happen, then you're almost like telling yourself to make it happen.
Yeah.
The whole like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you visualize yourself like winning a World Cup as well, more so than like the actual race run?
I visualize the best run I can do. And then it's kind of cool. Sometimes I'll go like, this is the time I want. So I'll do, because throughout a weekend, I'll do like 10 or 15 runs in my head.
Yeah.
So even on track walk, you're like, if it's a new track, it's a good way of learning a track. But like if the last one before my race run, I'll do it in my head, and like you feel like, cause I'll do it while I'm warming up. So your heart rate's up, like you genuinely feel everything you feel when you're riding. You're breathing, you're trying to stay calm on the flat bits, you're speed tucking, and then you'll cross the line, and then like in my head I'll be like, all right, that was a 3:34 or something. And then you do your run and you're within like a couple seconds. It's pretty nuts.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Like some of the my best ever runs I've ever did, I've been like within a second. Like my top
Yeah.
10
What's been
runs.
your best result?
6th
Far out.
at Worlds. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty ridiculous too.
What was that feeling like, getting 6?
It was ridiculous. Like,
I can't even fathom it, hey.
nah, and like my best result before that was like, oh no, sorry, I got 8th the week before. Before that was like, yeah, 18th or something.
Yeah.
And it was just full underdog. Like that's when Union was killing it. Like it was at Leger too, and that was the most insane crowd ever.
Yeah.
And I remember coming down pretty early on because of my number, and came in the hot seat, and I was like, cool, like that was a good run. And then like
That's such a good feeling.
and then some big dogs came down. I'm like, should I just put like 4 seconds into him? And then I was like, there's only 10 guys left. And then it was insane. Like, I couldn't believe it. And then like Bruni came down and won, and I'd just stepped off the hot seat. So I was still in the finishing corral when Bruni had won, just because I'd only just stepped off the hot seat. It was it was insane.
Holy.
That's wild.
What was that feeling like, being in that fishing corral? Is that the one, like, all Frenchies,
Yeah, run
everyone
in.
stormed?
Yeah.
Dude.
It was ridiculous, and it's kind of like I did not feel like I was meant to be there. Like what you said before about
Imposter.
like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like I was like, nah.
Holy.
It was ridiculous.
That's wild.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
What sort of next for you? What is next ambitions, next goals?
I think now that I'm healthy, stay healthy,
Yeah.
and I'm just genuinely looking forward to riding my bike healthy. Like,
Getting that joy back.
yeah, and like riding the other day with Ollie up at Threadbow, like just so much fun. Like
Yeah.
nearly 30, just giggling our asses off.
Yeah.
Like it was the coolest thing ever. And I just like having another, like Tony doesn't have to give me another chance. Like he has no reason to give me another chance next year. But he believes in me and like wants to see me get to my full potential.
Is that a big thing, having someone else believe in you?
Yeah,
helped
for
a lot?
sure. Because at the end of the day, it's an individual sport, and it's so easy to get in your head. And if you haven't got good people around you, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like this year would have been hell if it wasn't for my partner or my family
Yeah.
or my team.
Yeah.
Like you can see in like so many other sports or so many other like aspects in life, if you haven't got good people around you, it's so easy to fall in a hole. So yeah, I think having like we were already preparing off season, like team camps and stuff, and like I don't think I've reached my full potential yet, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I can get on the podium on if everything all lines up right. I think that can happen, and yeah, I believe like I can be in top 20, top 10, like be there. So
That's mad.
which is crazy because if go back to when we first talking about like that the levels. It's like if I said that 6 years ago, I would have told you to
Bugger off, not a chance.
bugger off.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see like how you do progress and level up and what used to be like a top 30 was like I remember when I got my first top 30 and my whole family was like freaking out.
Yeah.
And then now it's kind of like if I got a top 30 now, I'd be like almost annoyed in a way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's crazy like how much progression there can be if everything does fall right.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
We always have
Yeah, a closing question.
we ask every guest same question at the end.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned through in your entire life?
Whoa. This is a hard one. Biggest lesson. It's so cliche or like so, I don't know, because like my dad would say this to me my whole life, but like just believing in yourself is so much more powerful than you think. As a little kid, you're like, just believe in yourself. You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you genuinely believe you can do it and genuinely believe that you deserve to be there or see yourself doing it, sky's the limit. Like, I shouldn't be where I am now with where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's obviously been this, like, I'm not more talented than Rooney or any of these other guys. But if you believe in yourself and you like, because that just leads into everything else. So if you believe in yourself, you're going, okay, I'm gonna invest time in myself, and I'm gonna go the extra mile. I'm gonna invest whatever it is. Invest in an extra flight to ride somewhere different to get more data on your bike.
Yeah.
Or invest in a really good coach.
To improve yourself.
Yeah, improve yourself. Like if you just believe in yourself so much, you'll take all these small, tiny little steps to get better.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying before about breaking it down. If you believe in yourself so much, you'll break everything down to try become the best person.
Best you can be.
Best version of yourself. I reckon.
Yeah.
Bro, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Bro, blessing. Thank you so much.
It was so good.
No, that was sick.
Ollie Zwar, everyone.
Like and subscribe and that.
Or just do what you want.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
In pod.
That was good. Thanks, all.
No, thanks, boys.